Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of The Book of Joy? Lasting Happiness in a Changing World by Douglas Abrams. When faced with hardship, how can we cultivate joy? The Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu's week-long conversation is chronicled in the Book of Joy. When faced with so much darkness and suffering, how can we find joy and light? These two of the world's most influential spiritual leaders explore this question. When it comes to religion, Archbishop Desmond Tutu is the spiritual leader of the Anglican Church and the Dalai Lama is the spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhism. It is fitting that both men have been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in recognition of their work as spiritual and moral leaders. The Dalai Lama's 80th birthday celebration brought the two world leaders together for a one-time event, but they left with a deep and lasting friendship. With their exploration of common ground, they can speak from a place of concern for humanity that transcends religious differences. Both men are examples of what they preach. They have both experienced hardship and exile, but they have remained steadfast in their belief in the goodness of people. But it's their compassion and infectious joy that truly transcendentalizes them. These precious conversations are a timeless gift. The Book of Joy is about finding joy in the darkest of places. Author Douglas Abrams transcribed and published these conversations in order to show readers how a fleeting feeling of happiness can be transformed into a lasting way of life. The hard-won wisdom of these two great men is further validated by his incorporation of psychological research. We'll talk about what joy is and how it differs from other positive emotions. We'll also talk about the 8 pillars that support our ability to experience joy. It's important to remember that happiness is a mental and emotional state, not just a fleeting emotion. It is because of this that joy encompasses more than just happiness. Happiness, on the other hand, is heavily influenced by external factors, while joy isn't. The Archbishop says that every day we have the opportunity to create and recreate our lives. This is the power we grant. It is not a dark fate that determines our future. He argues that we won't be able to find lasting happiness in any accomplishment, or even in fame and fortune. We can only experience joy when we live our lives in accordance with our values and reduce unnecessary suffering. We all wish to avoid pain at all costs. It is a sad fact of life that people experience anxiety and worry, sadness and depression, and even feelings of isolation and jealousy. Rather than beating ourselves up for feeling this way, the Archbishop advises against doing so because it only serves to exacerbate our feelings of shame and guilt. Instead of being reactive to our feelings and experiences, the Dalai Lama believes that we can take a more proactive approach. Our ability to cope with pain is largely influenced by how we train our minds. It's akin to developing mental immunity, says the Archbishop and the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama likens mental immunity to the ocean, with waves crashing on the surface but a peaceful calm at the bottom. Both men describe their own personal experiences with these feelings and the coping mechanisms they employ to deal with them. This is in line with the most recent findings in science. Enlarging our capacity to be happy. By cultivating the so-called 8 pillars of joy, we can increase our capacity to feel joy. These 8 pillars represent either the mind or the heart, depending on your point of view. Perspective, humility, humor, and acceptance are the 4 qualities of the mind. Forgiveness, gratitude, compassion, and generosity are all characteristics of the heart. This book was almost titled The Book of Compassion because of its focus on compassion and generosity. The first pillar is a person's point of view. Which way of seeing things are you? It all comes down to how we choose to view the world. Perspective, according to the Dalai Lama, is nothing less than the skull key that opens all of the locks that imprison our happiness. As a result, by shifting our point of view, we can alter our perceptions of the world and, in turn, find more happiness. Dr. Edith Eger, a psychologist and Holocaust survivor, illustrates the importance of being able to see things from multiple points of view in her story. She illustrates the importance of perspective by recounting the story of a fellow Auschwitz prisoner. Because of her belief that they would be freed on Christmas, Dr. Eger's fellow prisoner was able to hold on to her life. It was a tragedy that she died on Christmas Day, despite her tenacity in the face of insurmountable odds. Humility is the second pillar. What do you think of yourself as? Helps reduce anxiety and connects us more easily with others when we see ourselves as neither superior nor inferior. The Dalai Lama emphasizes the importance of human connection while the Archbishop argues that we will experience more joy if we are less self-centered. When addressing an audience, the Dalai Lama used to feel a great deal of anxiety. I would be very nervous because I didn't see myself as the same as the audience, he says. I began to realize that these people are just like me, and that we're all just as human. Humans are more alike than different, and the only way to happiness is to connect with others rather than to separate ourselves from them, says the author. Humor and acceptance are the third and fourth pillars. The power of humor to bring people together is undeniable. He says it's the most direct line of communication between two individuals. Abrahams points out that the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu's mischievous laughter was one of the most memorable aspects of the 7 days of conversation. As a coping mechanism, how often do you use humor? Stressful situations can be lessened by the use of humor. During the Rwandan genocide, for example, the Archbishop was invited to speak to the Hutus and Tutsis, the country's two warring factions. Using a fictional story about a place where people with big noses discriminate against those with small noses, Tutu lightened the mood by injecting humor into the proceedings. People in the audience couldn't help but laugh, and in doing so, they came to see the absurdity of prejudice for what it was. As a result of humor, we learn to accept life for what it is rather than what we think it should be. Much of the Buddhist path is devoted to developing the ability to see life as it truly is, without the usual biases, expectations, and projections that cloud our view of it. Distracting thoughts and feelings can be silenced through meditation, allowing us to better perceive reality and respond to it. Forgiveness is the fifth pillar. As the first quality of the heart, forgiveness helps us move forward by allowing us to let go of the past. Forgiveness is by no means easy, admits the Archbishop. But we all have this noble spirit within us. A remarkable example of forgiveness was displayed during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa in 1995, according to the Archbishop of Canterbury. Her son had been brutally killed on television and she was able to move past her grief and anger at this commission. When asked about the possibility of granting amnesty, she said, "What is it going to help us if he were to go to prison? But our children are gone forever." There are many ordinary South Africans who have shown this magnanimity, according to Archbishop Thokozile Masipa. Gratitude is the sixth pillar. The Archbishop frequently uses the word wonderful to describe new experiences. There are only a few of us who can say that. Gratitude is the true recognition of joy, and it allows us to open ourselves up to new possibilities. In Anthony Ray Hinton's story, this is perfectly exemplified. Erroneously imprisoned for more than 2 decades, he was finally freed in 2013. While other people were trying to avoid the rain after his release from prison, he was delighted to be able to run in it. He was grateful for every drop of rain, having been without it for so long. Compassion and generosity are pillars 7 and 8. There are many ways to express compassion, but the most direct translation is to suffer with, as the Dalai Lama explains. Compassion is what connects the feeling of empathy to acts of kindness and generosity, and it is not just humans who are hardwired to care. The experiment involved putting a sick mouse in a cage with healthy ones. Others in the colony cared for the injured mouse, licking it to show their concern. Consequently, the mouse recovered much more quickly. Compassion is difficult because it necessitates letting go of our egocentric viewpoints. Helper's high, which is a release of happy chemicals in the brain, occurs when we alleviate the suffering of others. Reciprocal altruism is a term coined by scientists. The final pillar of joy is the spirit of generosity, which is linked to this. Our own happiness increases when we make others happy. As a cliché goes, we get what we give. According to him, God isn't very good at math because when you give to others, it should be taken as a deduction from your own total. When you give to someone else, you open the door for more to come your way. I've found this to be true numerous times over the years. Finally, I'd like to say, what makes the Book of Joy so potent isn't just what it says about happiness and how to have more of it. We have the opportunity to participate in a dialogue between two of the most spiritually evolved people on the planet through this book. By which I mean an invitation to share their experiences and learn from them how they've dealt with adversity and found joy in its purest form. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.